Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland. Here I am in Zurich, the largest city in Switzerland. And behind me is the Swiss National Bank. So Zurich, it's got a population of not even 500,000, but then the metropolitan area is about triple that because there are lots of villages just outside Zurich. So Zuri, as it is in the Swiss German. Do I pronounce it Zuri? So what else should I tell you? No, it's not the capital, despite being the largest city. That's Bern, where I've been to as well. Bern, because it's got these bear pits, and you really can see live bears there in the city centre. You might think it's cruel. So Zurich is beside Lake Zurich, which we're going to see in a moment. The Limmat is the main river that flows through here. There's also a smaller river called the Sihl. I hope I pronounced that correctly. S-I-H-L. So there have been artifacts found here which go back to the Bronze Age. I mentioned it. It's mentioned in some ancient Roman documents. Now it's a German-speaking city. Of course, there's the Swiss-German dialect, but Swiss Germans can speak standard German too. That's the way you're supposed to learn it. Anyway, so it's long been known as a centre for financial services. In the 1930s, there was the Swiss banking law, which brought in banking secrecy, and they invented numbered accounts. So it was possible to open an account with only a number to identify the account holder. The bank wouldn't ask and would not be told who actually held the account. So people who wanted to evade tax in their countries could bring their money here. And so they took confidentiality very seriously. So people's ill-gotten lucre could be squirreled away in Switzerland, and notoriously during the era of the Third Reich, assets were sequestrated from Jewish people and put into these accounts. And we're here into the 90s, and then there were some of the documents about this were going to be shredded in the 90s, but there was a security guard, a very brave Swiss guy, who found out about this. He was doing night duty in the bank and rifling through files he wasn't supposed to read, which were there to be shredded or burnt, and he photocopied them, saved them, and then went public with it. He was a whistleblower, so that all came out in the wash, and then there was a lot of restitution of property. Some of the individuals were alive who earned it, often it was their descendants. So you see this bull here. I thought it was like a sort of bulls and bears thing, but I'm not quite sure why. Anyway, it's a memorial to one of the mayors, the Bürgermeister of the city. So what I like about Switzerland is it's just so incredibly limpid and serene. It's as though there are no problems, and it's calm, it's clean, it's efficient. It just works well, like a cuckoo clock. But yes, you may know that cuckoo clocks were actually invented in the Black Forest in Germany, not here, even though they're most associated with this country. I can't remember which film it was mentioned in by Orson Welles, saying that Italy was so dreadful, it was sort of incessant warfare and treachery and things like that, but they produced all these magnificent artworks, but Switzerland had centuries of peace and democracy, and all they produced was the cuckoo clock, which is inaccurate. But anyway, public transport is ubiquitous. You see these trams here, so calm and quiet. It's an excellent city to cycle. The centre of the city, in between the two rivers, is very flat. That's excellent. Obviously the hills taper away. In the background you might be able to see the Alps, so that's going further south. So we're the northern edge of Switzerland, not very far from the German border, so that's why it's fairly flat. But the further south you go, then the Alps get higher and higher. So not all Switzerland is mountains, though yes, it is the most mountainous country in Europe. And there are lots of public bikes. There are some free ones actually. I must find one of those. I like the price. One of the downsides of Switzerland is quality comes at a price. It is expensive. There is no getting around that. You bear in mind I live in London, one of the most expensive cities in the world. Obviously that they use the Swiss franc, and the sub-unit is the Rap, so divided into 100 Rappen. I don't know how they came up with that name. There's a nearby city of Rapperswil. I often wondered if they do that. Rap, not as in the like musical poem or whatever you want to call it. So crossing over here, they don't really have traffic jams in Zurich because people use public transport just so much. Obviously they've got mainline rail, they've got light railway just for the Zurich area, the S-Bahn, and what else? Oh, even boats as well as buses. Okay, so crossing over here, and as I say, quite practical to cycle around. cycle paths everywhere. You will have seen plenty of cyclists. And then show you a bit of Lake Zurich, which is much longer than it is wide, which is going to the south. Anyway, there's something deeply calming about looking out onto water, and it's just so placid. And there are these graceful swans floating by, and people can fish here. It's a very clean lake. I mean, you do see the fish a lot of the time. How about that? An azure lake, and it's crystalline. There's these little boats you can take a pleasure cruise on, and also that is public transport. So Zurich goes to that shore of the lake and around a bit, and eventually that's the end of the city of Zurich. I'm not quite sure how far up. Likewise on this side of the lake, for a while it's Zurich, but if you go too far up then it's no longer the city of Zurich. The opera house is there, where I once worked for about a month, but that's another story. No, I'm not an opera singer, dulcet though my timbre is. So that's a brief introduction to Zurich. Obviously it's the hub of Swiss International Airlines. It used to be just called Swiss Air, but then Swiss Air went bust in about 2005 and they renamed it, even though it was most of the same personnel and the same fleet, had to have a slight name change. So a big financial centre, and but most people speak excellent English, so you can quite easily get by if you don't speak German. Signs up in both languages. Obviously Switzerland's got 4 languages, the others being French, Italian and Romansh. Romansh is like a blend between Latin and German. I've heard it on television once, and I've read it sometimes. Okay, that's enough of a brief introduction to Zurich. Goodbye.